Transformations. This is a digital lesson that teaches the 4 transformations of reflection, translation, dilation, and rotation around the origin. This one is football themed. I have other similar lessons that are themed for different holidays. This one's a lot of fun for the students. It starts out with just a definition of what transformation means, and then the definitions of the 4 transformations we're going to see in this lesson. So students can refer back to slide 3 if they need to. And we're going to start with reflection. So students are going to use the fill color feature of Google Slides in order to create a reflected image. So it would be a mirror image across a line. This one we want to reflect across the y-axis. So it means it's equal distance from the y-axis and a mirror image. So students click and hold in the square they want to color, and they can scroll across to color in more than one at a time. They can come up here to the fill color feature. They can choose any color they want. And then they create a reflection across the y-axis. The next slide, they're going to be doing the same thing, reflecting across the y-axis, a different direction. And again, they click and hold and scroll across and then choose any color they like. Now they're going to take that same figure and they're going to, this time, reflect it across the x-axis. They're going to reflect across the line x equals 1, across the line y equals -1. And then on slide 9, they're shown what to do if they're reflecting across the line and they're already partly across that line. So these 2 points that are on the line, they act like a hinge. So if you just push this up, flipped it up, it would look like this. These 2 points are going to stay exactly the same. So the next slide, they're going to be given an example. They have to do this on their own. Then we move on to translation. So translation is just moving up, down, left, or right without changing the orientation. So this one, they just want to translate 6 units to the right. So they count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, choose any color they like. And then a little bit more difficult figure. This one, they're two movements. They're going to translate 4 units to the left and then 2 units down. Same thing on the next 2 slides. Just different figures. Then we move on to rotation. So this time we're rotating around the origin. We're going to rotate counterclockwise 90 degrees. So that will put us in quadrant 3. And we're going to use this formula, -yx. So we're just going to take 1 point at a time. These points are movable, the sides are movable. So if we look at the first point, -1, 2, and we use this formula, it will now be -2, -1. So I'm going to click and hold on one of the points and plot a point at -2, -1. Then the next point, -1, 4, will now be -4, -1. And the final point, -3, 2, will now be -3, or -2, -3. And then they can fill in the figure with these lines so that it completes their triangle. Now, if your students are a little bit more advanced and they need a little bit more of a challenge, you could take each one of these sides, and if you just click on the blue circle, you can change it so that all 3 are facing the same direction. And that makes it a little bit more of a challenge for the students to figure out where everything goes. So that is counterclockwise 90 degrees. The next figure, we're going to be moving clockwise 90 degrees. So from here, if it's clockwise 90 degrees, that'll also put it in quadrant 3. And this time we're going to be taking each point individually and using the formula y -x. Next one, we're moving it rotating 180 degrees, that will put it in the opposite quadrant. So if you take each point using the formula negative x, negative y, it'll be here in the opposite quadrant. And then we're going to be doing 3 rotations. So they have the formulas for each one. And you're just going to take each one of these points individually, use it with the first formula, second formula, and the third formula. And so you'll be able to see the rotation all the way around. Then we move on to dilation. Dilation is changing a figure by a scale factor. So it's going to remain the same shape, but a different size. So this one, if we dilate by a scale factor of 2, that means we take each one of the coordinates of each point and multiply those coordinates by 2 because it's a scale factor of 2. So the new point would be, instead of 1, 1, it would now be 2, 2. All of the coordinates multiplied by the scale factor. And then they can just go ahead and put the sides in to make the new figure. The next one, we're going to dilate by a scale factor of 3. So you're going to take the coordinates of each of the points and multiply them by 3. And here we have a scale factor of 1/2, which means it's now going to be smaller. And you're going to take each of the coordinates and divide by 2. The final translation, or the final transformation, will be to translate this figure 5 units to the left and then reflect it over the x-axis. So you've got 2 different transformations on one slide. And then the final slide, we're going to be going back, reviewing the vocabulary. Students are going to just click and hold, move these into the correct place in the sentence frames. This gives them a good review of each one of these transformations. So that is a digital lesson, football themed, of transformations.